Speaking of variants, I have something I want to show you, another haul item. But let me say, this is Sleepy Vlog 78.2. Continuing with a little bit of haulage and a little bit of responding to comments and questions from Sleepy Vlog 77. And any interesting comments or definitely questions about any subject you care to ask me, comic books or otherwise. Comics are kind of the spine of these Sleepy Vlogs, but they can go off on many tangents, I hope. Feel free to ask them in the comments below. I think I'm doing, so far, in my first try, a good job of following up on the previous Sleepy Vlog fairly quickly. So just today in the mail, I got something. Actually, here's the plastic from it. I haven't thrown it away yet. I got in the mail from Amazon this Marvelosity, the Marvel comics art of Alex Ross, by Chip Kidd and Jeff Spear. Introduction by J.J. Abrams. Chip Kidd is a book designer, so I guess he designed the book or he co-designed it with Spear. So I think a lot of the main covers lately are by Alex Ross at Marvel. I don't know how long his recent stint at Marvel has been, and if this is from that period. I'm guessing so, but I assume a lot of these were also variants. But I saw this book had just come out on In-Stock Trades, but it was only 25 or 30% off, so I checked on Amazon, and it was actually cheaper on Amazon. And luckily, Amazon shipped it to me very quickly, of course, and luckily it was not damaged. It was pretty well packed. I've got some books from Amazon that did get kind of scrunched up. Now, the dust jacket I've already opened up previously, and it's its own variant cover kind of thing. You can see the back cover kind of is like a front cover, Spider-Man, Captain Marvel. This is going to be hard to show you, actually. So if you open up the dust jacket, right here, I'll slide it off. It is kind of this amazing fold-out thing, and each panel of it is another variant cover, basically. I don't know if all of these were covers at Marvel already. Each one's a close-up of a character. If you're a big Ross fan, you might be tempted to hang these on your wall. So you might have to buy 3 copies. One to save, and one for one side, and one for the other side to hang on your wall. Because every single one of them looks like a cover to the book Marvelosity. And I have to say, these are stunning close-up paintings. I don't know which one would be my favorite. I'm looking at different ones than you are, because I love this one of Sue Storm and of Luke Cage. It just goes on. They're all amazing. So, yeah, I want to get more Alex Ross books now. This book, and I've only because I just got it this afternoon, I've only looked at it briefly. But it's hard to stop looking at. It seems to be about 300 pages. There's no page numbers, and yet it has a separate cover on the inside, right on the cover stock. It seems to be very well bound, which, as you know, is an important issue to me. And everywhere you turn is just amazing stuff to look at. They also show like statues based on his paintings, and yeah, there's some more examples. See some process drawings. Let me see. Now, the interesting thing, a lot of what Alex Ross does is homages to things that already exist. But he also, is a costume designer and character designer, and sometimes a plotter and a story writer. I don't know if he writes dialogue or anything like that, but like on Astro City, he does all the covers and he does a lot of the superhero character design there. So I think that he's kind of part of the brain trust of Astro City. But you could look at a lot of what he does and say, well, he doesn't come up with his own designs. But then I started to say that and I realized I'm kind of wrong. So, and the sticker that was on the plastic says that it's featuring hundreds of never-before-seen images, including a new Spider-Man story and much more. I have not actually come across the new Spider-Man story yet. I assume this is a childhood drawing by Alex Ross. Yeah, and there he is dressed up as Spider-Man with his father. His father, who was the basis of a character in Kingdom Come. There he is with Captain America, the modern-day Alex Ross. So, and the cover price to this is $50. I think it's really worth it. Cheaper probably than having bought all these comics for the covers. I'm not sure what all of this is. I'm going to have to look. Did they make paper dolls out of his designs too? Although those look like Jack Kirby designs, let's be honest. So let's see. There's just amazing stuff on every page. He's great at these group shots, which kind of reminds me of what Neil Adams used to be as a cover artist for DC in particular in the late Silver, early Bronze Age, doing these huge group shots of all of DC's superstars. And of course, he's wonderful at lighting and all kinds of aspects of these things. Makes one very excited for superheroes. I'll have to look through this more. Maybe I'll do a whole video on it at some point. So that really made my day getting that today. I'm always getting myself presents. Every day is Christmas in the Sleepy House. So let me quickly show you my yesterday's haul of comics. I only had 5. So I got, from my pull list, which is unusual. Usually I have like 11 or 12 comics come through each week. There's a Deathstroke, I guess in a new story arc called Arkham, where Deathstroke is committed to Arkham Asylum. And I've actually read this and I enjoyed it. I haven't read this yet. Justice League Dark is on my pull list, and I really liked the first 3 issues. But already it's part of a crossover with Wonder Woman, who is the kind of one of the main characters of Justice League Dark anyway. So I imagine it will be good, but I kind of resent that 3 issues in, they already have a crossover. I think it extends into 2 issues of Wonder Woman, and which is not on my pull list, and then another one-shot. And I assume also some issues of... Somewhere I found a chart showing which issues it would be in. But this is the kind of thing, in my opinion, that makes it hard for new people coming into comic shops, because you have to be kind of experienced or paying a lot of attention what's going on to even understand, hey, I've been reading this comic for 3 issues and now there's all these special issues and other issues of other comics that I need to get the full story. Super Sons number 3. Apparently this isn't on my pull list, so I grabbed it off the rack. I have issue 1 and 2, which I enjoyed. It seemed even more childish in this issue, which I've already read, but I still enjoyed it. But if it continues to... I think it's a 12-issue maxi series, so we'll see if I last the whole time. But it was fun enough. Paper Girls, I haven't read yet. Intriguing cover. And Action Comics was not on my pull list, but because I only got 3 comics on my pull list today. But so since I got so few, I picked up Action also, which I have just dropped. So I figured this is the copy that my shop wouldn't have sold, or that they would have put in my pile. if I hadn't dropped it. And I heard someone say it was really great, like one of the best Bendis things ever. And I've looked in it, and it has incredible Yannick Paquette art. The cover is still by Patrick Gleason, but I didn't think Patrick Gleason and Bendis were working that well together. So maybe Yannick Paquette will be a better mix. And then I also got the latest DC Nation, which I really enjoy. I've already read parts of it. It's almost becoming something I read first before I read the comics. So, yeah, it's fun. Okay, let me get to a few more questions. I was in the middle of talking about the direct market, addressing comments that were made in my last video when I talked about what I thought about whether I thought the direct market should continue and whether it will continue. I definitely think it should, and I think it's important to the continuation of, or been a very good vehicle for the evolution of American comics, and so I think it's a good thing. I hope it will continue. Another question, 64-page special says, if the direct market did collapse and web comics went away, would you be satisfied with discount back issues? I guess I probably would be. I mean, I have a lot of fun buying cheap old comics, and then I could devote more time to reading them if all that other stuff went away. Right now I'm kind of hoarding them with the hopes of eventually reading them, because I can't believe how cheap how I can get so much stuff that I, thought, ooh, I wish I could own that, or I wish I could read that, and I can get it really cheaply. I got boxes and boxes now that, have cost me next to nothing in the larger scheme of things. And then I thought, well, what if cheap back issues went away? I'd probably buy medium price back. I'd be happy buying back issues at $5 and $10 a piece. I'd be more picky. But I'd buy those. If all that was left were, if all comics were rare and collectible, like in the $100 range or something, then I'd probably spend less and buy way less on them, because that's sort of my threshold. Comics over, $10, they have to have a really significant meaning to me for me to grab them. They can't just be, oh, that would be fun to own. At least $10 now, that's, with inflation, it could change. Edward 2962 says, I'm not sure what's going to happen to the direct sales market, but it definitely can't continue as it is now. And I would like to respectfully disagree a little. I'm not sure that it's so bad now. I know there's a lot, when shops go out of business, there's a lot of hoopla about that, and there's a lot of worry about it every year. Some years the market dips and then it goes back up and then it dips. In the years where the New 52 started and where the Rebirth started, both of those boosted up profits in comics, and now they're dipping back down. And while we see the numbers on individual comics going down, the total number of comics sold apparently has stayed pretty steady. Now, of course, there is that variant issue thing and inflated numbers to deal with, but it seems to me like it could be that things are actually fairly stable. I mean, nothing's stable forever in life, right? Everything changes and goes away. But I think because of the internet and hype, or people who have agendas to push, they want to point out the idea that comic book stores aren't doing well. But like Paulo Costa, I saw mention, maybe in reply to me or in reply to someone else on Twitter, that 50 comic book stores have gone out of business this year. And I don't know where he got that figure from. I haven't seen it elsewhere. I've seen stuff about, this store went out of business, that store went out of business. But if there's, say, 2,500 comic book stores in the U.S., maybe 50 stores going out of business and some other stores going into business is kind of natural. I just discovered a new comic book store here in Portland that I didn't know about. And there's already were 11 of them that I did know about. And the new one has been around for a year or more. The store that I go to regularly has only been around 3 years. The owner of it previously was just a dealer who went to comic book conventions. And then another store, my sort of secondary store that I use as my backup to find issues that I can't get at my regular one, has only been around 2 years. And the third store that's right adjacent to me, there's 3 stores within a short walk, that one has been around for 40 years, or maybe even 50. Now 40, I think. 35, 40. Because 40 would put it really... Yeah, it's probably 35. It was one of the original wave of direct market stores in the early 80s. So, I mean, maybe I have a skewed perspective living in Portland, and Portland wasn't always the center of comic book creators, but there was a huge number of stores here in the 90s, a lot of which disappeared. So there's always fluctuation. So I think that it can't continue as it is now. It might be able to continue as it is now. That's my opinion anyway. Now, on to a store that is flailing about. Samuel Trejo mentioned, my local shop had a problem with Diamond and decided to part with them. Now they don't have any comics and don't know when they will. Seems they are relying on toy sales to keep going for now. So a comic book shop without comics, I wonder if they have back issues or, only toys. They're a toy shop then. But I think one of the problems the direct market has is that there's only one wholesaler to deal with. And if you don't like that wholesaler, it's great for Diamond being the only one, but it's not great for the comic book shops. If there were a number of competing ones, that would be cool. One of the big problems, there used to be a lot of comic book wholesalers. There's a book about the direct market. Maybe if I think of what it is, the title, I can put it in the notes below. But I listened to it as an audiobook and thought it was fascinating. And it seems like the collapse of all the different wholesalers was triggered by Marvel during its heyday as something that hedge fund investors were investing in Marvel. And they thought they were real clever buying their own exclusive distribution company, and then that company couldn't handle the business and collapsed. And somehow that caused a chain reaction of collapses that led to only Diamond surviving because they had a contract with DC, and then everyone had to come to Diamond. So another thing I blame on Marvel. Special Person says, thanks for the thorough response, Sleepy. So maybe Special Person's the one who asked me about the stores, about the direct market, or maybe he's referring to a different question. But anyway, sorry. Special Person says, I'm not sure what to think about the sustainability of the direct market. I take full advantage of it, but honestly, I spend more money tracking down runs from 35 years ago than I do on current releases. And the individual issues of those runs may be equivalent or less often than the new releases. I usually spend under $50 a month on new titles, and I don't purchase anything digitally. I'd love to see the comic book industry continue to grow into new long-term readership, but I'm not sure if the current direct market model promotes that potential growth. Most of the people that frequent the shops in New York City, at least, are either lifelong Wednesday warriors or people looking exclusively for Funko Pops, statues, or apparel, who may buy a single comic book or trade as a novelty but would rather just watch movies. Either way, thanks for your response. So I can see your point. It feels like there's not being generated a new market, and there are lots of kids reading graphic novels that they find at libraries or get in books, get as gifts. Whether someday they'll get hooked on this idea of buying new comics every Wednesday, it's hard to see how that'll happen, but maybe, or maybe a percentage of them enough to keep comic book stores going. I kind of proposed earlier that even if comic book stores are not the main place of selling comics, that they're still an important first step for a lot of comics. So, in my opinion, as long as there were enough of that audience, graphic novel audience, peeling off and going to comic book shops, that might be good enough. I do see new people coming into the comic shops I shop at, but usually I get the sense maybe they won't stay because they look kind of confused and dazed as the pull list is explained to them, or where they're shown all the different options they have when they say they want to read an Avengers comic or that kind of thing, the confusingness of it all. So it would be nice if comic shops and comic book publishers both thought more about how those new readers get started. I know they've tried here and there, the new readers in the shops, as opposed, they're also working on new readers in the graphic novel world and such. Paulo Costa says, Paulo said a lot of interesting things over time about his ideas of fixing the American direct market. One being that the publishers should hire the Italian publishers of Disney comics and others to run the business here in the United States. Paulo says, if publishers ever decide they can make more money from digital, the comic shops will be in trouble. They may have to become a sort of antique boutique shop, and some of them are becoming that way already. That was me adding that comment. Focusing on back issues and high-quality reproduction of digital comics. But that isn't going to pull a steady source of income like New Comic Book Day. And yeah, New Comic Book Day is the magic sauce that no other form of publishing really has than comic books in America anyway. I'm not sure how that works everywhere else. I don't assume there's not a New Comic Book Day in France for bande dessinée and that sort of thing. So that New Comic Book Day business provides the base upon which to build the rest of your business, in a sense, and so the loss of it is bad. I guess you're right. If digital becomes the easier way to make money, why bother with printing on paper and stuff? So that may be a looming threat. My idea is that you'll always have some people moving from digital to the physical, or that's my hope. Silver Planet also makes a really good point. People are so used to target marketed niche books now that they would never tolerate the kind of broad appeal approach needed to go back into broader distribution. That will only work for kids, which is not a bad approach. Bringing kids in with broad appeal books in places where kids are, and try to bring those kids into adult market when they're mature. So kind of maybe a transition from those broader appeal kid books to the various niches that the kids, as they grow older, will settle into. The whole modern world of entertainment and other kinds of marketing is more and more niche, right? As we can find things that, just like we can find this niche of people who like to talk about comic books online that was so hard to find in real life, everyone can sort of self-select into these smaller and smaller niches. And that kind of, to me, helps explain the reality of more and more new publishers coming into comic book publishing, even though they're only going to get small slices of the pie. They're all looking for their little niche. And, like Ahoy Comics just came out this month, I think, and there's been a bunch of others before. And I guess they're all, even though they're entering the comic book store market, they're probably, many of them, looking at where their audience is beyond the comic book store, like, again, using the comic book store as a base. So that whole idea of niche publishing and niche entertainment is, I guess, really important and makes life really difficult for publishers. But it also leaves room for people with smaller concepts or smaller ideas or smaller companies. So that if the comic book stores survive and can manage by selling the same number of comics of a wider variety of titles, so individual titles don't sell as well, maybe comic book stores can survive on that. Or maybe that only works for comic book stores in large markets where there's a larger audience and you can pair out the bits of the niches along the way. Phew. I've gone on longer than I wanted, but let me just say, so in all of this, in the fear of the direct market dying, to me, the big villain is Marvel Comics. I think they play the gaming of the system the hardest with pricing tricks, variant cover tricks, special quotas that the shops have to make, scheduling tricks so the shops don't know what their sales are yet before they have to order the next issue, all kinds of pressure. And I feel like they're squeezing the market for as much money as possible and they don't care if they destroy it because they think it's going to die anyway. And by they, I don't mean the editors at Marvel Comics. My imaginary they is somebody higher up, people whose names we don't see. We don't see them giving interviews or anything, either suits at Disney or in the Marvel structure that is very high and reports directly to Disney. And if you think about someone with a business degree and some interest in publishing, but maybe not really that into comics and the direct market and all of that, they may just look at this and say, the obvious truism of publishing is it's all going to go digital eventually. We have this weird market where people respond to collectible stuff and they'll pay a lot of extra money if they think something's collectible. Let's just squeeze that till the market dies and make extra money while we can. And I feel like that's Marvel's attitude. I feel like DC or Image is much more building an audience and Marvel is squeezing an audience. So I would love it if my biggest fear of the market dying, the direct market dying, is that Marvel will kill it. And so that's one of the reasons why I don't buy a whole lot of Marvel comics. I try to buy, when I'm buying comics, I try to buy Image and DC and other stuff. Another reason is I often feel, for the same reason, I often feel sabotaged by Marvel Comics. I'll be starting to get into something and then things will go terribly wrong. A cheaper artist, an event ruining things, trick pricing and all of that. A sudden change in direction, a new number one out of nowhere. And DC seems a little more, they play some tricks, but not nearly on the level of Marvel. And Image seems to always try to give you value for your money. And of course, there's a lot more consistency because unless a book just stops, the creative team stays the same and usually puts a lot of effort into what they're doing. I'm hoping that even if Marvel kills itself, that it won't kill the direct market. But executives in charge of companies move on, people retire. I don't know if any of this has anything to do with the main owner of Marvel. What's his name? Ike Perlmutter. He's famous for wanting to squeeze money out of things and not wanting to spend money. But, I don't know where this comes from, but I sense that kind of thing. And so I think all the other different people have different problems with Marvel. I think it's all, in my mind, going back to this squeezing and killing of the market. I don't know if they're consciously killing the market. Like, it's very cheap to get Marvel Unlimited. Maybe they're purposely making that cheap while purposely making it really expensive to get physical comics because they want eventually to just have their own digital service and that be it, the top executives. Anyway, all conjecture. I will be back with part 3 where I'll move on to different questions. I have another one from Samuel Trejo, either comments or questions from Gregor Black, Silji, I'm not sure how to say her name, Larasa, another one from Special Person, some comments from Gore Vidal. So I'll wrap it up in part 3 of this Sleepy Vlog.